going to be doing our 22 under 22. The squad of 40 came out the other day, and I think the actual team gets announced next Thursday. But it's done on like public voting or something, isn't it? So it's a bit odd. But the 40 squad came out, so it's interesting to have a look at everyone's opinions on Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. So we're going to be running through our lists, and we're also going to bring her home with a bit of a round 22 preview. Just the usual stuff. We'll get some line tipping going, and intrigued to see that. I think the fixture only came out yesterday, so I'm looking at it for the first time. Not the fixtures and the dates and the times and venues, but heading into the 22 under 22, I might start us off as usual. Mine is a bit rogue. I decided not to use the 40 squad they gave us, which probably would have been smart because it would have saved me from any embarrassing picks, but decided to use my votes because these two boys will give you their real 22 under 22s, where mine, it's never really a educated opinion. So there's some rogue ones in there. Most of it's fairly normal though. They're all 22 or under. I checked the ages thoroughly, and they all played at least 12 games. So I haven't got any of that wrong, I don't believe. But in terms of the quality, that's a bit of another conversation. But starting in the back line, I've got Jordan Ridley. Me and Pilch were talking yesterday. I actually cannot believe this guy is eligible. I know we've been doing our redrafting series, so we know a bit of the ages a bit better now. But I thought he was like 1996 or something, but he's only born in 1998. So, and he's born after September, so he made the cutoff, and I think he would be in every side there is. But yeah, Jordan Ridley's in my back pockets. Fullback, I've got Sam Taylor. Another one who I was actually kind of shocked at how young he was. Pilch wasn't surprised, but I thought he was a bit older. But I think that's maybe just the way we view taller players. They're sort of seen as a bit more mature. But yeah, Sammy Taylor. Going to anchor down my defence. Then in the back pocket, Will Powell, young gun from the Gold Coast Suns, had a bit of a breakout year in defence. Then I've got CJ, obviously had his season-ending injury or whatever it was, but especially before his injury, he had a few rough games, but especially in the first 10 weeks of the season, he was one of the emerging talents for Hawthorn in what was a pretty dire start to the year. He was exciting to watch. This guy didn't actually make the squad, so he's a rogue pick. Once again, was a bit surprised he was young enough to make it, but I've got Noah Bolter at centre-half back. Pilch doesn't rate him as a footy player. Not sure how you stand, Rowie, but I know he's an aggressive defender, so I think he makes a lot of mistakes, but he can also be a big interceptor and stuff like that. So I've got him in my centre-half back. I think he's a decent player he's not a key piece, but he plays a role in a pretty good side in Richmond over the last 2 or 3 years. Then the other halfback flanker, I've got Isaac Quaynor. I think he's been a bit underrated since he's been drafted to Collingwood. He's sort of been there pretty much his whole time, hasn't missed too many games, and he's always just been a very reliable player for them. In the wings, I think I've actually picked wingers this time. Usually we, sort of bullshit the wingers, but I think they're actually wingers. Jack Lacoste just on one wing. I can't remember what we did. Was it our mid-year All-Australian where I snuck him in there and I got some interesting looks for that? But I think he's definitely earned his spot in this one. He is my vice-captain as well. I think Jordan Ridley's my captain if we're just going to go off best and second best players. I don't really care about their leadership qualities. Perryman's my other winger. He was another one to miss out on the squad, which I was shocked at. I think the other wingers you can choose from the squad are Bailey Smith and Justin McInerney, but neither of them have picked up votes for me where I'm up to in my voting thing. I'm a few rounds behind, but Harry Perryman I thought was very, very stiff to miss out on the squad. And he's a bit of a utility, can play anywhere, and Pilch has granted me the moral, he's let me pick him in the wing slot without feeling guilty. So appreciate that, Pilch. Not sure if he's a winger. He can play everywhere, so I back him as a winger. I actually really rate Perryman.
Happy to be of service, mate.
No worries, mate. Why did I say no worries? I'm not sure. This is where the side gets dodgy. The ruckman most people will have is probably Luke Jackson, but he actually hasn't picked up a vote yet in my voting, which is very stiff, but due to playing for Melbourne, it's pretty hard to get votes. So I've got Oscar Allen in there, just out of the tools who've got votes. He's had the most hit out, so I put him there, but I know he's not a ruckman. Then in the guts, I've got Sammy Walsh, obviously, in there. Probably arguably the best player in this. Actually, I don't think that's arguable. I think that's a fact. But Andy Brayshaw is the other one. And I've forgot this guy in the centre of the field. But James Rowbottom, struggling to get a spot in the Sydney Best 22, which I think is interesting. But yeah, I rate him as a player. Then in my forward line, I've got Shai Bolton on one half forward flank. He's had a couple ups and downs this season, but overall, I think he's had a very, very good year, and he's sort of broken out into a bit of a star player for the Tigers. Got Chad Warner, who's another one who missed out on the squad. Hasn't played recently, I don't believe, but he's just ticked over the 12 games, so he's in there for me. I'm pretty sure his votes came from round one, so probably not deserving to have a spot in here, but there you go, Chad Warner. Aaron Norton's my centre half forward. I think he'll be in everyone's team, and I think that's his third selection in a row if he gets picked, which is very, very impressive for a tall. In the forward pocket, I've got Max King in one pocket, and I have to say, these other two players are the dodgiest players in my team in the full forward line. So I've done it on votes. So a lot of these players have actually only polled in one game. So you can sort of fluke a half of football down in Tasmania and get away with it. And that's what's happened here. Jacob Kasich of Hawthorn has made it. He's played, I think, 14 games maybe. Has hardly done anything apart from that one half of footy, but he's made it for me. And then the other one, I might have to check it again. I don't even know if he's young, but pretty sure he came from the Cats. Now plays at West Coast. But my forward pocket, Jermaine Jones. My formulas for stats love a bit of pressure, acts, and tackling. So yeah, as a small forward, he's in there for that. But yeah, not sure how he got in there. Let's be real. Then my bench, I won't go into it too thoroughly, but Caleb Sarong, Adam Chera, James Warple. And then rather than picking four midfielders, I thought I'd pick a tall player. So I picked Tom McCartan from the Swannies. And then I felt bad for leaving this guy out. So I've made up a medical sub spot and I've put Noah Anderson in at the medical sub. But yeah, that's the end of my joke team. Time for two real sides. I reckon we go to Rowie first. Interested to hear your opinions, boys. Rowie, who have you got?
Just quickly, did you not have Benny King in there?
No, I actually didn't. No.
Fair cop. All right, so starting off from the back line, I got Brandon Starcevic from the Lions, who's actually really underrated. He's like one of the best lockdown defenders in the AFL at the moment. Absolutely no one probably knew that. I didn't. I'm about 6 rounds into the season until I read this quirky stat that he's kept like all his opponents like under a goal or something. So that's awesome for him, and he's just a jet. Sam Taylor at full back for the Giants. I mean, we all saw what he did to the Cats the other night on Tom Hawkins. I was absolutely livid with it because I needed Hawkins for a few, but at the same time, it was awesome to see Sammy Taylor give him an absolute bath. Isaac Quainer in the other half in the back pocket. I think we all know he's just going to be a really solid player for me. He'll be 200 plus games and all that. He's probably one of the safest kids going around that you just know is going to have a good career. Off the half back, I mean, I've got Jordan Ridley here. I mean, you could probably swap him and Quaynor. But, I've got Ridley here, obviously an absolute jet, probably one of the best players in this team. Tommy McCartan, centre half back, was obviously sort of drafted, I think, as a tall forward, but we saw what happened to the other McCartan when that happened, so they've tried him down back, and that's obviously worked out. He's a really good player. Whether he makes his way forward later in his career, we'll wait and see, but he's definitely deserving of that spot. And off the other half back, I've actually got CJ Giath. Obviously showed a lot at the start of this year. I just love his run and dash and what he brings to the game. There's a few contenders for this spot, but I think CJ's X factor is what gave him the nod for me. On one wing, I've got Bailey Smith. There was only, because I'm obviously going off the squad that they gave us, there was only 3 picks here, and I wasn't going McInerney, even though I think he's a good player, but got Smith and Jack Lukosius on the 2 wings. I think it's probably what most people would have had. Sammy Walsh in the centre square as well. Nothing to say there. Just, he's by far the best player in this team. I'm interested to see where he comes in the Brownlow actually this year. I reckon wouldn't mind putting a cheeky little 5 on that, but yeah, it would be awesome to see how he goes, and whether he can do a row and pole early and get an early lead. But we'll see what happens there. The forward flanks, I hate this pick because he's ruining my super coach season. It's Shea Bolton on 1.5 forward flank. Look, he's obviously still a Jet. He's obviously can do things lots of players can't do, especially for his age, obviously. But yeah, he's just having obviously a poor few weeks, but nothing too severe to get him out of the team. So he's on 1.5 forward flank, Taron Thomas on the other. It was either Thomas or someone else on the bench for this spot. They're both sort of mid forwards, but I think Thomas is a bit of a better player at the moment, so I'm going to have him starting on the flank. Aaron Norton as well at centre half forward, obviously. Like you said, Hammer, third selection in 3 years, so it's obviously a huge achievement for him. I think it's a no-brainer to have him in there. First forward pocket, I got Cozzy Pickett. I think he's an absolute beast. I think when Saints played Melbourne in round 2, we went to the game with a few of the cricket boys before our grand final the following day, and wasn't the greatest way to sort of spend our pre-game or pre-night for a grand final, because he used up a lot of energy sort of yelling at St Kilda to man up on this flipping bloke, because he had the best 1 goal, 15 touch performance I've ever seen. But he's an absolute beast. And I've got the 2 Kings at full forward and the other forward pocket. Nothing to say there. Obviously, well deserving in my point of view. It's going into the ruck. Luke Jackson, obviously a big sniff for the rising star this year. Pilch would probably say otherwise, but I think he's obviously a beast. I think he's gonna go pretty well in terms of rising star nom and his career. And then the other 2 boys to accompany Walsh in the centre bounce are Brayshaw and Chera. Obviously both from Freo, but I think they're both just absolute jets. We saw what Brayshaw did against Richmond the other week. I think Chera's just an animal. And now that Fife and also Walters are out of the team, they've been playing Chera in the middle, and we've seen what he can do in the last 3 weeks. He's just had it on a string. And then to round off the team on the bench, we've got Caleb Sarong. Obviously, another Freo midfield, but they're just stacked for young midfielders at the moment, obviously. Oscar Allen is too good to leave out of this team, even though he has been a little bit up and down this year, but I think his ups have been good enough to obviously make his way into the team. Zach Bailey as well was the one I was tossing up whether to field him or Taron Thomas or Shai Bolton for that matter, but Bailey's made his way in there. He's just going to sit on the bench for now. And Noah Anderson rounds off the team for me. Obviously, sort of almost living in the shadows of Raul, which is weird because Anderson's had an awesome start to his career and he hasn't really had any of the spotlight on him because he was obviously that number 2 pick. But yeah, he'll make his way into that last position on the team. And if I'm going to go for a medical sub, I might give it to probably LDU because I just couldn't squeeze him in. A few honourable mentions: Will Powell, Trent Rivers, Stephenson, Dylan Moore, Georgiades. But I'll go LDU as a medical sub there for me because I just couldn't quite fit him in.
Yeah, I was just looking at my team just quickly. Pretty sure Aaron Norton's the only top 6 team player. So that explains a lot about my voting system, that the other big dogs can't pick up any votes.
Chad Warner would be rapt to get into the team, in my opinion, but
yeah,
good on him.
Yeah, no, fair play, Chatty. I don't think he did anything beyond round 1, but that's enough for my voting system, apparently. Interested to hear your shouts, Pilch.
Yep, so quite a similar team to Rowie. My defence was the exact same, bar one change. I had Giath instead of Quaynor. Bit of a toss-up, but I think Giath was really good to start the year, and I think he deserves a spot. Did you have...
I had Quaynor in the back pocket, actually.
Oh, back pocket. So I put... My fullbacks are Ridley, McCartan, Starcevic, and then halfback, Powell, Taylor, Giath.
All right, so you've got Powell in there instead of...
Yeah.
Oh, didn't you have Powell?
No, I didn't have Powell.
Oh, my bad there, yeah. Yeah, I think Powell, really underrated player. Can't say I've watched Gold Coast more than twice this season, but I have looked at his stats and have heard the word that he's a really good player. Centre line, Baslenka, Walsh, Lukosius. I think that's pretty stock standard. Half forwards, Shea Bolton, Norton, and Zach Bailey. Few of these like half forward pocket type players were pretty tough to pick between, but went with Bolton, Bailey, and then Taron Thomas forward pocket with the 2 Kings, rounding out the forward line. Ruck Rovers, and ruck. Luke Jackson wasn't anyone else, so I had to put him in. He will not be winning the Rising Star, though. I will make that clear. Andy Brayshaw as one of the ruck rovers. And then this bloke, have not seen a single person put this bloke even on their interchange, but that's Willem Drew. I'm a very biased Port Adelaide fan, but I 100% believe that this bloke should be in the team. Third in the entire league in tackles, behind only Took Miller and Jack Steele, which are two of the best players in the entire comp. And he's arguably, since the bye, been better than Travis Boak for Port, which is pretty huge. And he's one of the most underrated players going around. And then rounding off the bench, Chera, Luke Davies, Oscar Allen, and Dylan Moore. I was sussing out Dylan Moore's stats since the bye, and they're ridiculous. That bloke's an absolute freak as well. But yeah, I'd say notable omission would be Cozzy Pickett. I just think he started the season on fire, but he's just kind of fallen off since the bye over the last 8 or so rounds. And he often has games where he gets 6 touches and does nothing with it. So don't think he's quite there.
Yeah.
And lastly, last point, medical sub, Georgiades.
I like the introduction of the medical sub. Big fan of it. All right. Just got some questions for your sides, boys. Obviously, I included some players not in the squads. I know you were only thinking about players in the squad, so it might be a bit hard to think of players outside of it. But Rowie, who would you have to say was the stiffest snubbing out of that 40-man squad?
Well, I would have gone probably Connor Rosie, off the top of my head. I think Perryman's also a shout, but yeah, he's obviously been injured a lot of his career. But yeah, if he went fit, he's definitely in there, Perryman, because he is one of their better players. But then a third one I didn't even realise was still young enough to be in this team, but until you mentioned it, was Noah Bolter. I think he was very stiff to not get a nomination, but probably those three. So I'd have it probably Rosie, Bolter, and then Perryman in that order, just because Perryman hasn't played as of recently. But yeah, I think Rosie's probably the stiffest.
Yeah, Pilch, as a Port Adelaide fan, do you agree with that? Rosie call?
Yeah, I would have said those 3 names. Despite me not rating Noah Bolter, I think he's soft, but he's definitely stiff not to be in there. But I think Perryman was the stiffest, followed by Connor Rosie.
What about Zach Butters?
He didn't play enough games.
Yeah, he was a couple short. Yeah,
gotcha.
I think Dersman was in the same situation because otherwise they were both in my team pretty comfortably. Not sure. I think Will Day was another one who just didn't have enough games. Sam Draper was one. He's like the main, probably other true ruckman apart from Jackson, so he didn't play enough. Hayden Young's also one that didn't play nearly enough, but he had some votes in my polling.
Todd Marshall.
So that was Todd Marshall. No, Todd hasn't picked up any votes, actually, surprisingly. But no, maybe next year.
I think he's too old, actually.
Yeah, no.
He's past the cutoff. He's past the cutoff, though, so he's eligible. He's just shit.
Yeah, good to hear. Sorry, Toddy. And then the other question, I was interested to get your opinion. I know it's very rapid fire, so it might be hard to think on the spot, but Pilch, I'll put you under the bus, mate. Who out of your 22/23 with the medical sub do you think which 3 players will become the best 3 players? Like when we're sitting in our rocking chairs in 2070, who are you looking back on your team and who are the 3 best players, do you reckon?
Yeah, very easy answer there, mate. So I'm not sure why you're hyped up. That'll be a hard question, but I'm going to go with King, and Georgiades.
Jeez, Carlton fans are not going to be happy with that one. Interesting though. I like it. Rowie?
Yeah, King and Walsh. When the Saints get Benny next year, it's going to be an absolute dynasty. So yeah, and then when Walsh wins 5 Brownlows, yeah, I think it'll be a pretty safe top 3.
I think Georgiades will win a Brownlow.
There's your clickbait little thing for Instagram.
That's so average. No, I can't say anything. I picked Jermaine Jones on my side. But yeah, I'd probably tend to agree with the King Walsh. combo.
If we're being serious, Norton.
Yeah, I think
No,
Norton. No, I actually agree with that. I think Norton might not be far off the Kings, but I'll still back the Kings as of right now. But it'll be an interesting one to look back on in like 15 years or something.
It's a miracle! Oh, yeah! What about that one? No! Unbelievable! Balotelli! Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle.